I was standing in heaven when the Lord showed me what is coming next, and it starts sooner than most people think. I saw the years ahead unfold like a trembling fault line, nations shaking. Systems people trust beginning to crack, and a church caught unprepared. Then he looked straight through me and said, "Go back. Tell them to fill their lamps." That warning wasn't for theologians or end times experts. It was for ordinary believers like me because just days earlier, I was on a construction site, more afraid of the news than anchored in faith. And I had no idea how close I was to death. The morning started the way most Tuesdays did, too loud, too fast, and already behind. Steel groaned somewhere above me as a crane rotated, its cable whining like a tired animal. The smell of diesel hung low in the air, mixing with wet concrete and dust. Radios crackled. Men shouted measurements. A jackhammer stuttered and screamed against the slab, vibrating through my boots and up my spine. I stood near the temporary office trailer, hard hat under my arm, phone in my hand. The screen glowed brighter than the sun ever could. Breaking. Markets dip again amid global uncertainty. Alert. New escalation rumours near Eastern Europe. Opinion. Is recession inevitable? Video. Political shouting match. This will change everything. My thumb scrolled without permission. Like it belonged to someone else. I believed in Jesus. I really did. I could still quote scripture. I still prayed technically. I still went to church most Sundays, unless overtime swallowed the weekend whole. I had been baptized, born again, set free once upon a time. But lately, faith felt like something I remembered more than something I lived. I locked the phone and slid it into my vest pocket, then immediately pulled it back out. Just one more headline, just one more update. As if knowing more would make me safer. Lucas! I looked up. Mark was walking toward me from the framing area, his face tight, eyes tired. He was younger than me, mid-20s maybe, but life had already pressed lines into his forehead. "You got a second?" he asked. "Yeah, sure," I said automatically, though my eyes drifted back to the phone. No new notifications. That almost bothered me more. Mark shifted his weight. My wife. "She's got that scan today. The doctors are saying it could be serious." I nodded. I knew this. He'd mentioned it yesterday. And the day before that. "I was just wondering," he continued, lowering his voice as a forklift passed, "if you could pray, or, I don't know. You always seem steady. Steady." The word hit something hollow in my chest. "Yeah," I said again. "Of course." But even as I said it, my mind split in two. One part of me remembered verses. "Cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you." Another part calculated schedules inspections due by noon, a delivery running late, a subcontractor who never answered calls on time. I placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. It felt like the right thing to do. "Lord," I began, my voice competing with the growl of machinery, "we just ask that you be with Mark's wife today. Give the doctors wisdom. Bring peace." The words came out thin, correct, but hollow. Like reading instructions, instead of speaking from the heart. I didn't wait for the familiar warmth. I didn't pause long enough to listen. "Amen," I said too quickly, already pulling my hand back. Mark smiled politely. "Thanks, man. That means a lot." Anytime, I replied, though my attention had already drifted back to the site map folded in my other hand. As he walked away, guilt brushed past me light, fleeting. I ignored it. "I'll pray more later," I told myself, tonight, when things slowed down. They never did anymore. I walked toward the scaffolding near the east wing. The building was rising fast, too fast, some of the older guys said. Schedules were tight. Corners got cut in the name of efficiency. I'd signed off on inspections. I should have looked it twice. I stopped beneath the steel framework and looked up. Sunlight fractured through beams and cables, turning dust into floating sparks. For a moment, it almost felt sacred. My phone buzzed. I jumped, heart racing, and pulled it out. News flash. Analysts warn of cascading global instability. Trending. Are we headed toward something worse? My chest tightened. Jesus Hefzer knew he had. Wars and rumors of wars. I'd heard the verse 100 times. Used to find comfort in it. Now it just fed the anxiety. I leaned against a support column, scrolling, absorbing fear like a sponge. The noise of the site faded into background static. I didn't notice the crane operator shouting until the voice cracked, with urgency. Hold it, Metal shrieked. I looked up just as a section of scaffolding shuddered. Bolts rattled loose, clinking like coins dropped on stone. Someone cursed. Another man yelled for everyone to clear the area. Lucas. A voice shouted again. Move! I took a step back, but my boot caught on a hose snaking across the ground. I stumbled, arms windmilling, phone flying from my hand. Time slowed in that strange, merciless way. I heard it then, the deep, terrible groan of something heavy giving way, steel snapping. A sound like thunder breaking open right above me. Dust exploded into the air. May screamed. The world tilted. I remember thinking, not praying, not repenting, just thinking I should have paid more attention. Something massive fell. The noise swallowed everything. And then darkness. The impact should have been the end of everything. For a fraction of a second no longer than the snap of a finger there was pain, not a sharp pain. Not something you could locate and name. It was total, crushing, like the weight of the entire world collapsing inward, pressing through bone and breath and thought all at once. There was a sense of being overwhelmed, of something final happening without my consent. And then it stopped, completely. The pain didn't fade. It didn't lessen. It ceased as if it had never existed. Like a switch flipped by an unseen hand, silence rushed in to replace the noise. No jackhammers, no shouting, no alarms, no ringing in my ears. Just stillness. I realized I wasn't breathing. That should have terrified me. It didn't. There was no weight in my chest, no urgency, no struggle for air. Instead, there was a lightness so profound it felt like rest after a lifetime of carrying something too heavy. I became aware that I was no longer inside my body. The sensation is hard to describe because there is nothing on earth quite like it. The closest comparison I can find is this. Imagine your hand has been clenched into a tight glove for years, fingers cramped. Circulation cut off and suddenly, gently, the glove loosens. Not ripped away, not forced, just released. That's me. There was a soft pulling sensation, delicate and precise, as if something unseen was carefully drawing me out of something smaller. I felt a moment of resistance, not pain, just attachment followed by a clean, unmistakable separation. I remembered a verse then, though no one was speaking it aloud. Before the silver cord is severed, it felt like that. Not a cord snapping violently, but a connection being unfastened, purposefully, intentionally. I was no longer bound to muscle or bone or gravity. I was above them. The awareness came suddenly, like opening your eyes underwater and realizing you're no longer sinking. I was floating down. The construction site was chaos. Dust hung thick in the air, turning sunlight into a pale, choking haze. Men ran in every direction. Someone was screaming my name over and over again, voice cracking, desperate. A radio squawked uselessly from the ground. Tools lay scattered like toys after a tantrum, and then I saw him, my body. It was strange how quickly my mind rejected the idea that it was me. It looked like a discarded thing, broken, unmoving, unnaturally still amid all the frantic motion. Hard hat cracked. Vest torn, one arm bent at an angle it was never meant to bend. I felt no pain looking at it, no fear. Just a quiet, stunned recognition. That's not me anymore. Mark was there. He slid to his knees, beside my body, hands shaking as he tried to do something, anything. Someone else pulled out a phone and shouted into it, words tumbling over each other. We need an ambulance now, there's been an accident, he's not moving. I drifted lower without effort, hovering just above them. I'm okay, I said. The sound of my own voice startled me. It didn't come from my mouth. It came from me clear, strong, unstrained. I'm right here, I insisted, louder this time. Mark, listen to me, I'm fine. Nothing. They didn't flinch, didn't Arawarji. I waved my hand through the air. It passed straight through a cloud of dust, through sunlight, through nothing at all. I moved closer to Mark, reaching for his shoulder. My hand went through him, new resistance. No warmth, like passing through mist. That's when it hit me. Not fear but awe. I was dead, and yet I had never felt more awake. My thoughts were razor sharp. No mental fog. No background anxiety humming in the corners of my mind. The constant pressure I had lived under, the numbers, the headlines, the what-ifs, the dread of tomorrow was gone. Not pushed aside. Gone. The news alerts that had once felt so urgent now seemed absurd, tiny, powerless, like children shouting about a sandcastle while the ocean waited. Patiently behind them, money, politics, recession, wars I couldn't control. All of it evaporated in the presence of something far more real. This was reality. Down there, time felt frantic and fragile. Up here, it was wide and deep and steady. I could see everything at once, the whole scene, without being overwhelmed by it. I felt sorrow for them. For Mark, for the men shouting and running and trying so hard to keep something they had already lost. But I did not feel sorrow for myself. Peace wrapped around me, not like a blanket, but like an atmosphere. I was inside it. It was alive, intentional, personal. I became aware that I was not alone. Not yet seeing anyone, but sensing a presence. Like standing near a great fire, with your eyes closed. Warmth, authority, invitation. The edges of the construction site began to soften. Collars dulled sounds of tin. The shouting below grew distant, echoing, like voices heard through water. The ground itself seemed to drift away, not because I was rising, but because it was no longer holding me. Then I felt it. A pull, gentle, but undeniable. Like gravity, reversed, upward. Not rushed, not forced, but certain. As if something above me had called my name, not with sound, but with command, and every part of me recognized it. The world below blurred. Light gathered above. Einlego. The pull intensified, not violently, but irresistibly, like my very being had been aligned with a greater gravity. Earth fell away beneath me, not as a place, but as a weight. I felt layers of atmosphere pass, without wind, without cold, without resistance. Distance became meaningless. Direction became instinct. Light gathered ahead of me. Then they appeared. They did not arrive with a flutter or a gentle glow. They stood into existence, as if they had always been there, and my eyes were finally permitted to see them. One on my right, one on my left. They were enormous. Not exaggerated, not monstrous, but unmistakably beyond human scale. Tall as towers, broad-shouldered, immovable. Their skin shone like burnished bronze, not reflecting light, but holding it, as if forged in glory. Their faces were stern and precise, carved with purpose. Their eyes burned not with anger, but with focus like living fire, restrained by perfect discipline. They wore armor. Not decorative, not ceremonial, battle armor. Plates layered with light and substance I couldn't name, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly, as if remembering ancient victories. Each carried a weapon at their side, not raised, not threatening, but ready. Always ready. I knew, without being told, they were assigned to me. One of them turned his gaze toward me. The weight of it was immense, not crushing but humbling, like standing before a mountain that could move if it wished. "Do not fear," he said. His voice did not travel through air. It entered me directly, steady, resonant, impossible to doubt. "We are here to carry you through." As we rose, the light around us dimmed, not because we were moving away from God, but because we were entering something else. A veil. We passed into what I can only describe as the air, not the sky, not space, but the realm Scripture speaks of when it says the powers of the air, the second heaven. And suddenly, I understood why protection was necessary. Darkness was not empty. It was crowded. Shapes moved at the edges of perception, twisted. Unfinished things that looked like shadows, given intention. They clung to structures that mirrored cities below, forming vast, invisible architectures of influence and deception. Some were tall and thin, stretching like smoke shaped into hunger. Others were dense and heavy, crouched like predators waiting for permission. They were organized. Ranks, hierarchies, territories. I saw one hovering over a hospital. Its presence thick and suffocating, pressing despair into the building like fog. Another clung to a government tower, whispering endlessly into the minds, inside confusion layered upon pride, fear weaponized into policy. I saw them dart toward moments, intersections machines, conversations nudging, provoking, tempting. A fraction of a second of distraction here, a surge of anger there. Accidents were not always accidents. The realization sent a tremor through me. One of the angels stepped slightly forward, his armor flaring with restrained light. The shadows recoiled, not fleeing, but backing away, like wolves measuring fire. "They cannot touch you," the angel said. "You are marked." As we moved, I saw something that broke my heart. Prayers, not answered ones, blocked ones. I saw words spoken in faith rise from earth like sparks, only to be intercepted, smothered, twisted mid-ascent by dark hands eager to silence them. I watched discouragement settle on believers like ash, convincing them their prayers were pointless. Then, a beam of light erupted. It came from a small house below us, ordinary, dim porch light. No steeple, no crowd. Inside, I saw a woman on her knees. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't eloquent. She was tired, eyes swollen from crying, hands trembling as they clutched a worn Bible, but her heart was aligned, fully, desperately. Her prayer did not drift. It pierced. A column of pure, white gold light shot upward, tearing through the darkness like a spear. Shadow entities screamed not in sound, but in recoil as the beam passed straight through them, unraveling their hold. The angels beside me moved instantly. They descended along that beam like lightning given form, weapons drawn, faces set with righteous purpose. Where the light touched, the darkness broke. I watched chains snap over a prodigal son, over a marriage on the brink, over a mind tormented by lies. I watched angels enter a hospital room, a prison cell, a lonely bedroom where someone had whispered, "God, if you're still there." Prayer was not symbolic. It was a weapon. It was authority exercised by those who had forgotten they carried it. Tears filled my eyes not from fear but from grief and wonder. How many times had I prayed half-heartedly? How many times had I scrolled past urgency instead of kneeling into it? We continued upward. The darkness thickened, then thinned, then resisted. A vast canopy stretched above us layered, churning, alive with opposition. It pressed down like a ceiling, vibrating with defiance. The angels halted for a fraction of a moment. Then they raised their weapons, not in struggle, in command. Light exploded outward, not blinding, but absolute. The canopy tore open like fabric under irresistible force. Darkness fled not slowly, but completely consumed by something it could not withstand, and we passed through. The transition was instantaneous. One moment, war, tension, constant motion. The next, heaven. Light engulfed everything, not harsh, not searing, but warm and total. Gold layered upon gold, depth without shadow. Peace so profound it felt like breathing for the first time. There was sound, not noise, not music, a living harmony. It didn't come from a single source, it was the environment. A resonance that carried joy, holiness, and welcome all at once. Every note was complete, yet part of something infinitely larger. The angels lowered their weapons. Their posture changed, not relaxed, but reverent. I felt it then overwhelming, undeniable. I was home, and someone was waiting. I don't remember walking. One moment I was standing in the light, still trembling from the passage through the darkness. And the next I was there within the holy city, inside a vast expanse that felt both like a throne room and a hall of strategy. It was not cold or distant like marble halls on earth. It was alive. Purpose pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. The light here was different. It did not come from lamps or stars or fire. It came from him, and then I saw the Lord. Words fail immediately, but I will try. He stood before me, and yet it felt like he surrounded me. His presence was not limited by location. His eyes burned like fire, not consuming, but seeing everything, not just actions. but motives. Not just sins, but wounds. Not just what I had done, but what I had neglected. His voice when he spoke was like many waters. Not loud in volume, but vast in authority. Like standing at the edge of an endless waterfall where power and beauty exist together without conflict. His face shone like the sun in full strength, yet it did not blind me. It exposed me. I decided to. My knees simply gave way, and my forehead pressed against the floor of glory that felt more solid than any ground I had ever known. Every excuse I had ever made evaporated in an instant. This was holiness. This was love without compromise. This was Jesus. I understood something immediately and painfully clearly. I had loved him but lightly. I had believed but casually. I had followed him but at a distance, careful not to let him interfere too much with my plans, my comfort, my anxieties. In his presence, my faith felt thin, lukewarm, safe. I wept not from condemnation, but from revelation. Lord, I tried to speak, but the word barely formed. My voice dissolved into tears. I felt undone and yet utterly safe at the same time. He stepped closer. I did not see his feet move, but the nearness was unmistakable. Then gentle, authoritative, his hand touched me. "Do not be afraid," he said. The words carried the same power they always had. Strength flowed into me, not excitement, but stability. He lifted me to my feet, and when I finally dared to look at him again, I saw something that shattered me completely. Love, not vague affection, not tolerance. Love that had scars. Love that had chosen nails. Love that burned brighter than judgment and deeper than mercy. Lucas, he said my name, and in that moment I knew I had always been known. With a movement of his hand, not dramatic, not rushed, the space around us changed. The light shifted, and before us appeared the earth, not as a globe, but as a living tapestry of nations, cities, homes, and hearts. Time itself seemed layered over it, like transparent sheets sliding forward. "Watch," the Lord said. The timeline began to move. I saw the near years unfold, not dates, not headlines, but seasons. I recognized the period ahead, the weight of it. The years people would later argue about, speculate over, fear. 2026 to 2030, the shaking began subtly. Economic systems wavered first, not collapsing all at once, but trembling enough to expose how fragile they were. People who had trusted in numbers and markets panicked when the ground shifted beneath their certainty. Political alliances fractured. Rhetoric hardened. Confusion multiplied. Truth became harder to discern as voices grew louder and angrier. Comfort faltered. Security felt uncertain. Then came greater tremors, natural, social, spiritual. Not everywhere at once, not always dramatic, but relentless in their message. What you trusted cannot save you. I braced myself, expecting wrath. Instead, I felt grief. This is the beginning of sorrows, Biloji said, his voice steady, not harsh. As I spoke before, birth pains, not death. I turned toward him. Lord, is this judgment? He looked at me, really looked at me and the fire, in his eyes softened with compassion. No, he said. This is mercy. With another gesture, he drew my attention closer to the church. I saw believers everywhere. Some praying fervently, their lamps burning bright. Others distracted, exhausted, divided. Many carried lamps, but, when darkness pressed in, their light flickered weakly. Oil was missing. I saw sanctuaries, full of activity, but empty of reverence. I saw worship sung with mouths, while hearts scrolled elsewhere. I saw people who loved God sincerely, but had postponed intimacy with him, assuming there would always be more time. Then he showed me the parable, 10 virgins, all waiting, all with lamps, but only 5 with oil. The darkness deepened in the vision, not to destroy the lamps, but to reveal them. Those with oil shone brighter. Those without panicked, scrambling to late for what could only be prepared beforehand. Many of my people have been distracted, Dilochi said. Not rebellious, distracted. The cares of this world have thinned their oil. The words pierced me. I saw myself again at the construction site, phone glowing in my hand, prayer rushed, heart divided. The shaking is not to extinguish their light, he continued. It is to expose where the oil is lacking so they may return to me, while there is still time. Then the vision shifted again, and hope erupted. I saw people pouring into churches not for entertainment, but for truth. I saw living rooms filled with prayer. I saw real repentance washing over families, campuses, workplaces. I saw prodigals coming home not because life was easy, but because truth had become necessary. The harvest was massive. Fields white, souls hungry. In the midst of shaking, the gospel burned brighter than ever. This is the harvest, the Lord said, and it will come through those whose lamps are full. He turned to me then, not just to me, through me. His gaze felt like it pierced beyond time, beyond the page, beyond the screen. Go back, he commanded, gentle, but absolute. Tell them the time to play church is over. Tell them to wake up. Tell them to fill their lamps. His voice lowered, not in weakness, but in intimacy. I am coming soon. The words were not a threat. They were a promise. And I knew my life was no longer my own. The light surged, and the world began to fall away once more. The descent was nothing like the ascent. There was no gentleness this time, no escort walking beside me in peace. No gradual transition. One moment I was standing in light, so alive it felt like home, and the next, I was falling. Not through darkness, but through density. The pull was violent now, urgent, as if time itself had seized me by the shoulders and shouted, "Not yet." Then, impact. I was slammed back into my body. The sensation was unbearable. It felt like being forced into a shell 10 sizes too small, like putting on a freezing, waterlogged coat that crushed every nerve at once. Weight returned instantly. Gravity became oppressive. My chest burned as if it had never known air before. Pain exploded everywhere. Bones screamed. Muscles seized. My lungs convulsed, desperate and empty. I gasped. Air tore into me like fire. My eyes flew open as my body arched violently against the hospital bed. Machines around me erupted, beeping, shrieking, alarms blaring in chaotic rhythm. He's BRCK. Call IT, call IT. Hands grabbed me. Voices shouted. Lights blinded me from above. Someone pressed hard against my chest. Another voice yelled numbers I didn't understand. I was crying, not from the pain. From the loss, the lie was gone. The sound of heaven, the living harmony, had been replaced by harsh fluorescent, buzzing and panicked human voices. The peace I had stood in moments ago felt impossibly far away. I sobbed like a child who had been pulled from home and dropped into exile. Please, I tried to say, but it came out as a broken sound drowned by oxygen and sobs. Please. I wasn't asking to live. I was grieving where I had been. Recovery took months. Bones healed. Scars faded. Doctors called it a miracle. Charts didn't make sense. Words like statistically impossible floated around my room as casually as the smell of antiseptic. But no one knew the real miracle had already happened. My body healed, but I was not the same man who had entered that construction site. They brought me a phone one afternoon. I stared at it for a long time before turning it on. The news came flooding back. Markets shaking, nations posturing, rumors escalating. Fear packaged as information, sold hourly. But something was different. The anxiety didn't return. I didn't feel the old tightness in my chest, the compulsion to scroll, the need to know everything right now. Instead, I felt clarity. I wasn't watching the news anymore. I was watching a script unfold, not with smugness, not with excitement. With sobriety, I began to pray again, not rushed, not rehearsed. Prayer no longer felt like a religious task. It felt like stepping into a control room I had once ignored. I saw the world, the way heaven had shown me through the lens of urgency and mercy. When I told my family, some wept. Some listened in stunned silence. Some smiled politely and blamed the medication. When I told my church, reactions split the room. A few leaned forward, eyes burning, hearts stirring. Others leaned back, arms crossed, uncomfortable. That sounds intense, someone said. You went through trauma, another insisted. Let's be careful with experiences, a leader warned. I understood. If I hadn't seen it myself, I might have said the same. Tayo. I knew the sound of heaven. I knew the weight of his gaze. I knew the command, so I kept speaking, not arguing, not convincing. Just warning like a watchman who sees the horizon clearly and refuses to stay silent because some prefer sleep. And now, I'm speaking to you. I didn't come back to tell you when the world ends. I wasn't sent to predict dates or feed fear. I came back to ask you a far more dangerous question. Is your lamp full? Not your church attendance. Not your theology. Not your opinions. Your oil. Is your life burning with quiet devotion when no one is watching? Is your prayer life alive or only active when you're desperate? If the lights went out tonight, would your faith still shine? The days ahead are not meant to terrify the church. They are meant to purify her. The shaking is not proof God has abandoned the world. It is proof he is still fighting for it. This is not the hour for distraction. This is the hour for intimacy. The bridegroom is not coming for a distracted bride scrolling through the night. He is coming for a people awake, radiant, and ready. Fill your lamp. The coming days are not for fear. They are for glory. If we are positioned correctly. Before I end this, I need to stop telling the story about me and ask you a question that heaven asked me. If the lights went out tonight, if the noise stopped, if the bridegroom came sooner than you expected, would your lamp be full? Not your good intentions, not your church attendance, not what you meant to do when life slowed down. Oil doesn't appear at the last minute. It's gathered in secret, over time when no one is watching. And I know how hard that is in a world designed to keep you distracted. I lived there. I let headlines shape my peace more than scripture. I let urgency steal intimacy. Many of you have asked where to start practically. Not perfectly, just honestly. I've pinned a resource below that helped me refocus when everything felt overwhelming. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't complicated. It simply brought me back to the word, back to prayer that wasn't rushed, back to filling my lamp a little each day. If you felt spiritually dry but genuinely hungry, consider it a lifeline, not a purchase. And if this story stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Subscribe to the Lazarus Log, not just for more stories, but to stay awake together. If you want to explore the files of the unexplained with us, not through fear, but through truth, this is where we do it. These accounts aren't here to entertain you. They're here to prepare you. To remind you that heaven is real, eternity is close, and the time to get ready is always now. You're not late. But you're being called, fill your lamp. Stay watchful.